Good morning from Busan. We are out here in the coastal town, and it is also super dang hot. We got yet another warning that there is extreme heat expected, so hopefully we'll be able to keep hydrated and keep ourselves safe. That's right, this is a supersized video because I am going to be giving some thoughts on the Galaxy Z Fold 5 right here, but also this is a bit of a travel video. I had a wonderful time in Busan. I'm actually about to leave and take the train from Busan back to Seoul, but I thought I would put the entire weekend together and give my thoughts on this phone because it is what I used throughout that time. So while this is not necessarily a real-world camera test, you're going to be seeing a ton of stuff from this particular phone. And this is going to be a little bit like using the Galaxy Z Fold 5 to create a travel video. But of course, before we get started with everything, we have to do the actual unboxing, and you know what to expect here. The phone is opened up here, ready to be folded, and you can see that there's no gap on the inside anymore. After that, a SIM tool and a USB-C to C cable. On the last night with Samsung in Seoul, they actually hooked it up with an S Pen case, one of the new ones that has the smaller S Pen installed on it. That way you can have a stylus no matter where you are. This icy blue is actually the signature color for the Galaxy Z Fold 5, and now with the case, it's full-on icy blue. I don't think it looks bad, it's just that blue is not necessarily my first choice of a color. I do appreciate the yellow S Pen though, especially since sliding it out and then snapping it back into the case makes a fairly good fidget tool. But really, aside from the fact that there's no more gap on the inside, you pretty much have the exact same phone from last year, and that's the reason why I'm not going to go too hard into the specs to talk about what is different from this year from last year. It even comes down to the fact that the battery is still 4400 milliamp hours, and as you're going to see in this video, that ended up being a tiny bit of a problem by the end of both days. We have made our way to East Busan, where there is a very old and very famous temple. I'm gonna give a little bit more information on that a bit later, but it's also a Saturday, so there are a ton of people around here. You can buy some candles and actually put them here to say a prayer. That's pretty common for various temples and various places of religion. But if you look closely right here, it says Traffic Safety Prayer Pagoda. We have a huge pagoda right here. If you watch a lot of Korean dramas, you know that vehicular manslaughter is a very common trope in those shows. Maybe there's something to that. I hate to say it that way, but maybe you want to put one up for anybody that you might know. If there's one thing that I'll always give the Galaxy Z Folds a lot of credit for, it's for having more cameras, or potentially even more powerful cameras. It's in a situation like this that you do want to have the ultra-wide, but it's also in a situation like this you want to have some sort of zoom. That way you can just get far shots, especially with the landscape that looks like this. You want kind of both of those particular ways of taking those shots. Coming to you from the front-facing camera, the one that's on the cover display. I don't want to discredit this camera just because you are able to use the rear ones and then flip the outer screen around. This is still capable of 4K video recording. This is still going to take some pretty decent selfies. It's just that you have the option to use the other ones. Of course, you can come into the temple here and actually give your prayers, send your blessings, and to do your rituals. It's just that in order to enter it, you have to take your shoes off. We keep an Asian household here, guys. Really, the rest of the people who are here are just trying to cool off because it is hot as sin right now. And since the phone is exactly the way that it looked before, you also have the same very narrow aspect ratio on the outer display. Just like last year, I do have mixed feelings about how this feels. The way that I put it in previous editions of the Galaxy Z Fold is that it feels as if the phone is inviting you or almost requiring you to open up in order to get a better experience than what is provided in the narrow screen. So you kind of have this give and take in the two different configurations of the phone. When you have it opened up, you do have basically a tablet-like experience, but then it's not as easy to hold. When you have the phone closed, it's super easy to hold, but the narrow aspect ratio might make things a little bit different. I haven't had a chance yet to use the S Pen for a whole lot, but one thing to remember about this S Pen, it's not the full S Pen that allows you to use the button as a remote shutter. It's basically just a straight up stylus, which is not a bad thing per se, and especially since it easily slots into this case that I got for the Galaxy Z Fold 5, it's not the worst thing in the world. So even though the temple was originally built in the 1300s, it was actually destroyed during the Japanese invasions here in Korea, and it was rebuilt in the 1930s. So it is the oldest temple, but a lot of what you end up seeing was renovated some 80, almost 100 years ago. The only thing about it is that despite it being a very old Buddhist temple, there are a ton of people here. This is absolutely a tourist attraction. Would I say you should definitely come here? I would actually say yes, but maybe on a weekday if you happen to be here, not on a weekend, because the amount of people on the weekend is probably way more. And take a look at this, there are chargers here. Chargers for your phones, you just get everything charged up while you're just enjoying the view of the water here. After all, Yeonggongsa Temple actually sits right on a cliff overlooking the water here in the coastal area of Busan. And you would imagine that as I'm running around to all of these various destinations in Busan, that opening up the phone is going to be a little bit of a rarity. There are definitely times when it makes sense for me to have the phone opened up and just enjoy some things while on the go. In the information side of things, it's nice to have a large canvas to read up on the destinations I'm at. And then of course when I'm in things like subways, it is nice to have a larger screen for watching things while waiting for the train to arrive at the next destination. Another thing to know, and I'm sure I've said this in a previous video, is that there are just so many cafes in just one tiny little area. I'm literally walking by cafe after cafe here, and it makes me wonder if Koreans have like a caffeine addiction problem, but probably more so than that, especially during hot seasons like this. It's in cafes that you actually have a space to chill out and to gather, and it's just an easy place to actually meet with people. One thing that I always adore about eating at a restaurant in places like South Korea, there's always this attention to detail, especially if you're going to like a place that's not fast food or anything like that. It's just really nice to be able to see the level of design that is in here. So we have all of these banchan here. These are all of the side dishes, but at a Korean restaurant, typically if you can't find the utensils, it's because they are hidden out of sight and ready for you to find. And it kind of makes sense with South Korean cuisine because after all, you have all of these things called banchan. It's all of the side dishes that are along with your main dish. So they all have to be designed a certain way. They all have certain ingredients and whatnot. So it kind of makes sense that they have that particular mentality with the venue itself. But one of the main attractions here is the actual beach. There are a ton of people out here right now, and it makes sense because it's a hot day, it's a Saturday and whatnot. But I also think there might be an event going on somewhere way down over here where there's a ton of umbrellas. This is still a foldable. We still don't want this thing to end up in like salt water and in the sand or anything. So I am being a little bit of a daredevil with the phone right now. But here's the thing, it is so hot on the area of the sand that is not wet that you want to be out here. This is one of the only times where the water is super cold and you're like, thank goodness. Welcome to the Sky Capsules here in Haeundae. Beautiful, beautiful view, and I have to give the Samsung smartphones credit for being able to work with the HDR here. It's a half-hour ride, I'm just gonna enjoy and chill. And you know what, I really can't blame the Fold for having, let's say, less than ideal battery life in a situation like this, because I've been using the camera a ton today, but even more so than that, every time the display has been on, including while I'm using the camera, it has been on adaptive brightness, which means that it's been going not just full blast on the brightness, but even beyond that. That does mean that the Galaxy Z Fold 5 has like really good visibility in broad daylight, and that's a good thing. It's just that having that on for the entire time for that 3 or however so many hours of screen on time, it definitely drains the battery way more than just normal usage. Seven out of 10. 7 out of 10. Would do again. Would do again. Especially in a colder month. I will say that. In a colder month, I think it would be a lot more enjoyable. Even more. And while the hardware of the cameras in the Galaxy Z Fold 5 is the same as last year's, it doesn't mean they are any less capable. This is the foldable that gives you some zoom range. This is also the foldable that you can vlog with pretty effectively by using the outer display as a viewfinder. And even going full auto on photos and videos, you are usually pretty close to a good result. If there's a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done, well, it'll get you the rest of the way. You know, I didn't really do a tea break for this video because I was certain it's going to go pretty long. Had a very long day here in Busan. And here we are ending it with these BTS statues. But I still want to provide some sort of reminder, and as I look forward and I see there are a ton of people on the street and there's so many places to eat and so many great places to have like coffee and drinks and whatnot, then the BTS statues are behind me, I just want to say, remember to appreciate where you are. At least in my case, you know, I'm just here with my girlfriend and seeing the BTS statues here was her idea, but there are so many people who would love to be right here with these statues here in Busan, and I am able to do that. So I just want to be sure that I appreciate the fact that I get to be here and I get to share it with all of you, at least in this video. Which is why this video is more about where I was rather than exactly what I was using, but you can see throughout this video that it is what I was using that helped make this video possible. You know what I'm going to miss about South Korea, aside from the fact that the humidity has done absolute wonders for my hair? It's just convenience store stuff. We've needed this every morning. And sometimes you just need to stay in for a morning and make your own food. These are all of the leftovers that we had from our first night here because we wanted to get delivery, but there was only one delivery service that would send food to here, and it was called Shuttle. They got us a lot of bosam. I figured this morning I would make breakfast by just getting some of this bosam and making some kimchi fried rice. So I hope this isn't like too weird for anybody, but we just went downstairs to the convenience store, the Nice to See You, and grabbed one of the easy to make like kimchi fried rice bowl things. But I figured when I opened up the rice packet, which yes, that was the wrong thing to do at that moment, but I opened it up and I was like, you know what, that looks a lot like day-old rice. And my fellow Filipinos know that's the perfect rice to use for frying up some fried rice. We just out here trying not to waste too much food. I feel like we're just so shiny for the rest of this trip because it's so hot out. But in any case, good morning. Second day in Busan. And we have another pretty packed itinerary, but more chill than yesterday. The thing is, it's still as hot as ever. I love ducks. My favorite animal. They're just fun, cute. I know that they smell, and I know there are some other weird things about them, but I just like them a lot. This is a duck cafe. There's just so many sets here. Like there's sets. That's the best way for me to put it. Like there's this like mask right here, a bunch of them, zombie stuff. There's a gun. There's a toy gun on the bed. Like what kind of scenario is someone trying to play out here? Also, as you can see, it got really small over here, so I actually have to crouch down in order to get here. This place is wild. I'm using the Galaxy Z Fold 5 more for its wide-angle camera, and then using my main camera to get dramatic B-roll of like places that we're at. And I feel like that's a pretty good combination, especially since you can use the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic in this case to monitor as a monitor for the camera on the Fold, or the Flip if you have it connected to that. So that way I can kind of set shots up like this that are wide-angle and whatnot. But yeah, this is wild. All right. Time to head down, and this is what we would end up feeding the ducks. Corn. Oh, there's like barely enough room for a foot. That was... Oh. People are also free to just decorate the area like crazy. The place is already decorated like mad, especially with a lot of like horror stuff. I feel like these guys really enjoy Halloween and whatnot. Oh, that's awesome. I'll let you come to me, it's fine.
Oh!
Do you just shit?
Yeah.
Or piss?
Oh! It smells like the floor.
Having the ducks out here is actually way better because that smell doesn't really get to you, and at least they don't have to clean up so much if the ducks are indiscriminately defecating outside. There's no other way to put it. That was crazy. The Hanok village that I featured in the Galaxy Z Flip 5 video, that one was more of a, let's say, obvious touristy spot where there were a lot of vendors, cafes, restaurants, and whatnot. Other villages, cultural areas, or Hanok villages as they might be called, but this one's just called the cultural village, people actually live here. So it's usually better to just be a little bit more quiet, a little bit more respectful of the noise levels around the area. Just like I showed in Haeundae yesterday, full of color, but it's also full of hills. And there is one attraction here that I feel like they knew exactly what they were doing when they put it at the top. This mural right here is the reason why we've come up here. We have Jimin and Jungkook right here. Jungkook being my lady's favorite member. And they put this mural up here at the top because these two members are actually from Busan. So, love from the city for two of the members of one of the most popular acts, music acts, whatever, influential people of all time. Beatles, a member of a rock band, John Lennon. I don't work here. Hard life, take away without leaving a trace. 1890. Here's yet another pretty interesting cafe here in Busan. This one's called Magnate Cafe. And do you remember when I said earlier that Jimin and Jungkook were both from Busan? Well, Jimin, his father, this is his cafe. So what's funny about it is even though that is the claim to fame for this cafe, there's actually not a whole lot of stuff here. Actually, there's almost nothing here that is BTS related. It's just a really good cafe, and we're having a couple of cakes. I'm having an Americano, but then the cafe itself just has a very lovely aesthetic. Okay, I lied. There is actually a little bit of BTS stuff here, but basically all about Jimin. There's a brand here called ZM Millennial, and apparently ZM is like sort of a play on words with Jimin's name. There's also like a thing here that talks about Jimin having a song on the top 100. That's the thing. It's just Jimin's dad being very proud of his son, which is really wholesome, honestly. Ultimately, the Galaxy Z Fold 5 works really well for everything I needed it for during this weekend in Busan, but that also is not truly indicative of all of the capabilities that this phone has. I did not really do a whole lot of multitasking on the larger display. Usually for somebody like me, I use the larger display to just enjoy things like YouTube videos and, let's say, K-dramas. DeX can be a very good tool, especially if you want to blow up your smartphone experience into what feels like more of a desktop experience. Now, if you put those extra things aside, maybe the price of the Galaxy Z Fold 5 might be a little bit to stomach, and that's the reason why trade-ins are always a good thing to do. In the case of this year's foldables and really this year's general devices from Samsung Unpacked, there are plenty of trade-in deals that are available, so make sure you get into the description and in the pinned comment below to check out my link so you can try out the phones for yourself. If you're interested in the Galaxy Z Fold 5 or the Z Flip 5, that would be the way to get into them. So check out the links below.
Grilled eel, I'm told, is a specialty here in Busan. We weren't really going to go for a lot of the crazier seafood and whatnot. Keep it real simple. I want a whole crab and I want some eel. There is no air conditioning in here, which is why I am so shiny right now. Also though, I don't think I've ever worked so hard for such an incredible meal in my life. This was awesome.
And so there you have it, a supersized video on the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5. Because this phone is so similar to last year's, I thought I would just use it to provide one of my first travel videos that injects quite a bit of tech because of what I'm using to capture all of that footage. Let me know what you think of everything you saw from the Galaxy Z Fold 5, and you know what you saw of Busan that I was able to enjoy here in South Korea. Let me know in the comment sections down below. From there though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me as I traipsed around Busan. Please take care of yourselves and each other and enjoy your tea, everybody.